Welcome to the Hoosier Heartbeat, where we keep up with the pulse of Indiana basketball. This is a podcast that explores the intersection of basketball analysis and personal fandom across the state of Indiana, from lifelong diehards to brand new fans and everyone else in between. In today's episode, we're diving into a really interesting contrast in Indiana basketball right now. On one side, the Pacers are facing what feels like a gap year after Tyrese Haliburton's Achilles injury in the finals, a moment that could reshape expectations for their season. On the other hand, the Indiana Fever are entering the year with rising championship expectations and a growing spotlight. To explore both the emotional and analytical side of this moment, today's episode features a couple of different perspectives. First, you'll hear two personal interviews from members of my family. One, my mom, who isn't really a sports fan before this season, and my younger brother, who's a new fan and actually just started playing basketball this year. And later in the episode, we'll shift to a more professional perspective with the WNBA preview featuring Lindsay Burke from Sports Illustrated. So today we're asking a simple but important question. Can a losing season still be a growth year? And what does it mean for Indiana right now as one team looks to rebuild while another is chasing a title? When you look at this Pacers season, everything really starts with one moment, the injury to Tyrese Haliburton. An Achilles injury isn't just a short-term setback. It's the kind of injury that forces an entire organization to pause, reset, and rethink its entire timeline. Coming into this season before Tyrese Haliburton was injured, the expectation was clear. We would either be defending our title, or had we still lost to the Thunder, we would be trying to reach that same level of success and win a title. But when Haliburton went down, the expectation shifted almost immediately. We traded back for our pick in the upcoming draft. We let our starting center walk in free agency. Instead of trying to compete at the top of the Eastern Conference without our star, the focus became development, figuring out what this roster could become rather than what it currently is. And in that sense, the gap year has actually revealed a lot. Start with Andrew Nembhard. He's really taken on way more responsibility as the lead guard this year, showing growth not only as a scorer, but as a decision maker and a floor general. His stats are all up. Points, he went from averaging about 10 points a game to 17 this year. His assists are up. Every other defensive stat is up. He is just showing real development as a player. Then you look at players like Jarace Walker. Early in the season, there were real questions about his consistency and confidence. But as the year has gone on, you've really started to see a more composed, reliable player. Someone beginning to understand his role and impact at an NBA level. And defensively, you have to look at players like Johnny Furphy. Last year, he didn't play any really meaningful minutes in the playoffs, but this year, he really showed a defensive leap forward, an area where most young players really struggle. And I think this shows a strong sign of long-term potential. Now, beyond player development, the front office has made moves that reflect the shift in direction from more immediate competing to development. One of the most important was, of course, the Ivica Zubac-Benedict Mathurin trade. This trade signaled a willingness to reshape the roster from last year. We're trying to create a more balanced team. We traded away a capable scorer in Mathurin, someone who I think truly has the potential to be a star. But it's not just about that immediate firepower, but about building a roster that fits together when the team is ready to compete again. And we lost Miles Turner in free agency, someone who really allowed this team to compete at that higher level, even if he was regressing a bit. And gaining Ivica Zubac, who's now one of the top centers in the East, really makes this roster make more sense to compete for a title. Another key move the front office has made is converting Quentin Jackson from a two-way to a full 3-year deal. This is a clear investment in the continued development of players. He started as a two-way player, showed some real flashes of brilliance and commitment to the Pacers style, so he got rewarded for it. The last thing you can really look at for this year would be the draft. The Pacers' position in this draft could be one of the most important outcomes of the entire season. When Haliburton went down with injury, we thought this year could have felt completely hopeless if we did not have that draft pick. We would have had to try our best to compete with little to no odds of success. But now, with that pick, we have the potential to add a prospect like Darren Peterson, A.J. Devontis, or Cam Boozer. And the question becomes, do you prioritize upside fit or immediate impact, something like that? But it's good that you can even have these questions, because in a gap year, if you don't have that future to look forward to, there's nothing to look forward to. So while the current record may not reflect success in the traditional sense, this season has quietly become about something else entirely. Evaluation, growth, and I think laying the foundation for what comes next. Now, to speak about what's coming up next on this show, we'll shift from this conversation about roster construction to one more about personal connection. How does a gap year actually feel to the fans who are watching it unfold in real time? Welcome back to the podcast. For this segment, I'm sitting down with my mother, Heather Drudge, to talk about what it was like experiencing the Pacers season from a sort of new fan's perspective. So before this season, how interested would you say you were in basketball or the Pacers?
I've always liked watching basketball, but I wouldn't say I was a fan of like watching any certain team. But if I caught a game, I would enjoy watching it. And so I think not a super fan, but I could get into a game.
When you think of like a basketball fan, what kind of person do you picture?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Athletic person.
I mean, I guess when I think of a basketball fan, I just picture people I saw on TV just wearing the clothes and getting super into the game, yelling at the refs, that kind of thing.
You don't yell at the TV?
I don't yell at the TV usually.
So, you were in the room with me when Halliburton got injured. We were watching that in the hotel room. But when he got injured, did you feel like the next season was already going to be like over?
No, not really.
You had hope?
I guess I was naive because I just started watching basketball, so I thought
there was
maybe
a chance
the whole team could come together and at least have a decent season. I wasn't really expecting it to be as bad.
Not 15 wins, 40 losses.
As it turned out, yeah.
Well, you knew you were going to get to see your favorite player, Obi Toppin, the whole season, and then how'd that turn out?
I was sad that I didn't get to see him either time I went to watch them in person because he was injured. And, I mean, it was sad when everybody else got injured all the time.
We definitely need to go to a early game next season to try to get as many people as possible.
Definitely want to see everybody before they get injured.
Injured or traded. What made you keep watching even when the team wasn't winning, like, at all?
For some reason, I'm just, like, really drawn to all the players, like, as people. And I just enjoy watching them play together, even when they're losing. I feel like it's still exciting to watch. And when they actually, like, are winning or coming back from losing, I always have hope that they're going to win. Even though, it doesn't happen that often this year. It's still fun to watch. Like, I just like watching it. Have
you started recognizing a lot of, like, players or, like, sort of, like, team storylines outside of the Pacers, or do you mainly pay attention to that?
Like, of other teams?
Yeah,
I mean, I've realized now I didn't really know other players other than, like, big players over the years, and I can, like, notice other players on teams that I, like to watch. And I know people's names that, like, you and Caston talk about now that I didn't really know before. I mean, there's people I don't really like to watch.
Talking about people that don't matter.
I do like watching certain teams, even other than the Pacers.
Caston's asking you, like, do you know who the starting center was for the 1988 Pacers?
That I do not. Will not probably ever know.
What do you think people might find interesting about a season that could be like a gap year? What do you think people can learn from that?
I mean, I think a fan would like watching no matter what. Like, you're sad when they're not winning, but you can still, like, all these new players that we had coming in, it was kind of fun to watch new players. It's fun to see people that aren't superstars that are, like, starting to be good and get their time in to get better. Like,
So are there any newer players for the Pacers that you think you've gotten attached to this season?
Yeah. Quentin Jackson. I'd be sad if he hadn't stayed and didn't get a contract. I like everybody that's on the Pacers, to be honest. I'm sad when anybody leaves or gets traded.
I've had my problems with a lot of people, but since Jarris is good,
I do like Jarris. I always liked Jarris Walker, though.
He was really bad.
You didn't like him, but I liked him for some reason. I think I just like him as like a person.
And then lastly, if the Pacers become good again next year, what do you think that will hit different knowing that you watched like the bad year? You think that it's like an investment to you?
I definitely feel like I can claim to be like an actual fan.
Yeah,
I got the license plate for my car the year that they were 15.
You watched like 70 bad games.
I've watched a lot of games this year. I've been invested. I'm still a fan. I mean, I feel like I've almost become a fan at their worst year because I just started watching the playoffs. So I didn't really know the players or like was invested. I feel like now I'm invested in like their worst year. So hopefully their worst year.
Yeah. 8 wins next year.
100 wins.
100 wins. I mean, we could get, if you win every game, you have to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
No, you can't. It's 98 wins, I think.
Total 98?
If you won,
if you won 4 games and did the
82
playoffs.
win. If you won every game, 82. Wait, that's not even 98. That is 98.
Would definitely be 100, wouldn't
This
it?
is not. Next, I'm joined by my younger brother, Caston, who experienced this season a little bit differently. He started just watching games, and eventually he started doing a little bit more, a little playing more. Okay, to start, when did you start paying attention to the Pacers?
I think I started paying attention to the Pacers during the finals a bit more,
Yeah, we watched some games together. You were laughing at me when Halliburton got hurt, I think.
No, I wasn't laughing. I was that.
So speaking of Halliburton's injury, how did that change the way you see the team outside of Halliburton?
That's a very big hole in the point guard spot. No.
Yeah.
Not as much passing.
You don't think that my guy, Nemhard, is doing enough?
I think they should play him at shooting guard more because I think that's his natural position.
You think we should run point Shepherd?
No. We don't want to do that.
Has any player's development this season really stood out to you?
I think Nemhard's development as a point shooting guard worked very well. He's been playing at point guard more assists and passing.
What about Jarris Walker?
I mean, he's improved this season because he's had more playing time. You can't always fill the small forward spot.
So, you decided to start playing basketball yourself, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about what made you want to play basketball?
Probably the Pacers losing Game 7.
That motivated you?
It kind of motivated me to play, become better.
You decided you wanted to win a championship yourself. So you tried out for the Fairfield team, and that didn't really work out, and then you went into the cross-court basketball league. Could you talk about that a little bit more? I know we played some 2-on-2 at home, but then like joining an actual team, doing that, what was that like?
No, I joined the actual team. It was a very good rounded team. Started a lot of games this season. Won a championship, of course.
The cross-court championship. Now, the cross-court league is this sort of local... Is it based around the school? Like, who organizes that? It doesn't really matter.
Northridge.
Just sort of a little non-school related league for kids like Caston who are new to the game.
Oh, I don't know about new to the game.
You're new to the game. Was it harder than you expected, like actually playing basketball?
No, it wasn't that hard. I think I'll have a better chance at scoring now that our 30-point scorer is gone.
Yeah.
Next season.
Yeah, you're more of a Ben Shepherd type than a
I think I'm more of like a...
Who do you think you are? What's your player comp?
Maybe like a Neesmith at the threes.
And that is your favorite player. Caston here owns a Neesmith jersey.
Do you own a Neesmith jersey?
Yeah, which makes it even more embarrassing when Neesmith has a bad game. He's covering his hands.
He just had like 29 points last night.
He did have 29 points. Do you think watching the season where there were really no expectations has made you understand basketball better? Or do you think that watching a tanking team isn't as entertaining?
I think it's interesting to see a team without their main source of offense, to see them develop. I think they're going to be greater next year.
Do you have high expectations for next year?
I'm hoping. I've seen Zubats play so far.
Yeah.
He's been all right. So if he plays even better with a good passer like Halliburton, I think he's going to be great next season.
And you got like DeJounte Murray and Tatum both playing well. So they're playing well. Halliburton should be able to come back. Hey? So do you feel like you consider it like a bit of a waste of time to watch the season knowing that there's no good outcome? Are you still enjoying it?
I think I was enjoying it way more at the start of the season. Like when they won against the Warriors.
Well, yeah, the first win of the season against the Warriors, we both jumped up and like hugged each other. It was so exciting. Quentin Jackson, Siakam hitting like a game winner.
Then no, I didn't really have too high expectations for the start of the season.
Did you think we could have made the playoffs?
No, I didn't
Never.
expect us to.
I mean, injuries didn't happen.
Right
maybe.
after like the first 10 losses, I was like, oh.
I mean, after that, we were definitely not going to make it.
And then when they had 2 wins and 8 losses or something, I was like, man.
If next season they're healthy and competitive, how will you think this season matters in hindsight? This tanking season.
I think if we manage, I think the Matherin trade was a very smart move. Offensive wise, because they need to fill the center hole. And next season, if we have a Halliburton lineup, then it'll be Halliburton, Nembhard, Neesmith, Siakam, and Zubats. So I think next season is going to be great compared to this season.
And then one last question: do you really think you can beat me in a 1-on-1?
Yes, I have multiple times.
I think I've cooked you about an equal amount of times.
No.
Well, thank you for your opinions. Yeah, that's all they are, opinions. Some of them are wrong. And you're like, I will cook you in 1-on-1.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you again.
We spend a lot of time looking at what a gap year means, the patience it requires, the development, and the long-term thinking that comes with it, and how the fans react to it all. But not every team in Indiana is in that position right now. While the Pacers are stepping back and trying to recuperate from the finals loss, the Indiana Fever are doing the exact opposite, stepping forward into one of the most anticipated seasons in franchise history. With rising championship expectations, the national spotlight is on the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. And while the league finds itself facing serious threats to its future with ongoing CBA negotiations with the players, there isn't a bigger moment than the one we're currently in. It's a defining one. So we'll hear a breakdown on this from a professional perspective, with help from a journalist from Sports Illustrated. Welcome, Lindsay, to the podcast to speak about the Indiana Fever's upcoming season. To start, could you introduce yourself a bit to the audience and talk about what you do?
Yeah, so I write for a site called Indiana Fever on SI. So it's an affiliated site of Sports Illustrated, where we cover not just the Indiana Fever. There's 2 separate websites that I work for. It's the other one is Women's Fast Break, but ultimately it's women's basketball. So one is more geared towards college basketball right now, is what we're covering. And then a lot of the different WNBA teams we'll cover on that site too. And then I do the Indiana Fever on SI site, where obviously it's specific to the Indiana Fever. This is my first season writing on this site. So I'm very, very eager to get on board and do this. So it's a step up from the previous website that I've covered for right out of college when I graduated. So gets a lot more viewers. It's a lot broader of a website. So.
And outside of for work, how long have you been following women's basketball?
Probably about 2 years now. Really, since Caitlin Clark broke into the WNBA. I followed a little bit of college, just because I came from Ohio State initially, when I was at school there, and then they had a really decent women's basketball team. Men's basketball, not so much. So I got drawn into women's basketball more so. They were having a lot more success in the men's program. We're not really known as a basketball school, but they made it into the tournament. They were doing really, really well, really over the last 5 years or so, I would say. So that's really over the last 2 or 3 is when I really became invested in women's basketball. Didn't watch hardly any of it prior to that. So, it's a growing game. It's growing really quickly, obviously, with the attention. So, yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, myself included, got more involved once Caitlin Clark joined.
Yeah.
Definitely at least gave Fever fans something to be more excited about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So to start from like looking at like a national perspective, how do you think the Fever are viewed heading into this season?
It's a little difficult to say. Obviously, they did very, very well last year, given the circumstances of all the injuries that they faced. Obviously, Caitlin being the big one, and bringing on all these players on hardship contracts. So they're temporary contracts, to fill the spaces. Just because WNBA, it's on a much smaller scale. So there's not a lot of in-league trades, free agencies. It's not as big as your NFL, as your MLB, that sort of thing yet. But of course it is growing. So obviously they really exceeded the expectations last season and hope to keep that momentum going into this year. With the ongoing CBA negotiations, though, it's really hard to say because nobody knows what these teams are going to look like.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on that later.
A lot of them, a lot of their rosters are going to be based on this salary cap, which obviously these negotiations are going to dictate. So, if they can keep their big star players, obviously Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston, they'll be there, hopefully for some time past their rookie contracts. But they have a lot of really good pieces to build around. So, comparing them on a larger scale amongst the entire league, I expect them to do very, very well. They have a fantastic coaching staff. I was ecstatic when they brought on Stephanie White as their head coach. I watched her when she was coaching at Connecticut, just a couple years ago, and she's done well everywhere she's been. So, the expectations remain the same. Obviously wanting to reach that championship round. But, given what they were able to do last year with all the new pieces that kept coming in and out.
They were one overtime away from reaching the finals.
Yeah.
That's very close.
So, it was outstanding what they were able to do last year. So definitely carrying that momentum and that expectation into this season. So I still expect them to, be a top 5 team for sure in the league this year.
But do you think like we aren't in like championship or bust territory, just like sort of climbing up from here?
I think that has to be the expectation for them, given what, like I said, what they were able to do last year. Obviously losing one of their star players in Caitlin and still managing to make it as far as they did. Like I said, they have a lot of very talented pieces still to build off of. So if they can retain Kelsey Mitchell long-term, if she can finish her career in Indiana, I think that's going to be huge for them. Obviously keeping Aaliyah Boston, once her rookie contract is up. Lexi Hall, her contract expired technically at the end of last season in 2025. So, and then of course, Sophie Cunningham is a big addition. They have Michaela Timpson, that's really stepped into a major role last year. And it didn't
I'm very curious about what you see as like the crucial pieces. And I think you'd have more of I know a lot of contracts have ended going into the new CBA, but what pieces do you think they're going to keep from like the injury replacement players last year? Like I know Odyssey Sims was having a great season near the end there, and they had what is her full name? Ari McDonald, where she was really good when she stepped in the middle, but then she got hurt. So I'm wondering what of those players do you think they're going to keep? Do you think they'll lose some people like Sydney Colson or Natasha Howard? Do you think they're going to stick around for a little bit longer on the Fever?
Well, I certainly, and again, a lot of it's going to weigh on these negotiations far as what happens, obviously. But, I think Ari McDonald, she is an outstanding piece. I mean, she stepped in and went right into fitting into Stephanie White's system. I mean, she had basically no flaws last year other than her injury, right? And then she competed in Unrivaled and re-aggravated that same injury. So and I just wrote a piece on this too, probably a little over a month ago. Her injury status, is that going to affect her stock value with the Fever? I mean, obviously it's something that they have to play into account with her. I wouldn't necessarily label her as an injury prone player. I think she is a piece they need to try to keep. Her and Odyssey Sims, she had an outstanding offseason. Odyssey did, winning the AU Pro Championship, which she had been chasing for 5 years. So to see her finally get that was really, really good. Shed a positive light on what she can still bring to the Fever. She has a lot of experience. I believe she's in her mid-30s. So, she's not one of the youngest players in the league. But I think those are two players that they really should focus on keeping if they can. Obviously, Aerial Powers, I mean, they did fantastic work for the Fever last year, right? So coming into a new team, these players aren't necessarily competing on other teams when they sign on hardship contracts. I mean, they can be sitting around at home and jump right in and start playing, which a lot of them did. So, I think back to it, I think Odyssey Sims and Ari McDonald, I think have really good potential to stay there. But, obviously, like I said, once we see where this direction goes, it's going to really shed a lot of light on what these teams are going to look like. So
I think looking at it from I know I've watched almost every Pacers game this season, and looking at it from a similar situation with injuries in the Pacers, there have not been any injury replacement players that have been anywhere near as efficient or impactful as some of the Feverish players had been that season. It's just been for the Pacers, just in and out. Who even are these guys? But now I'm still remembering these players months later after they just played a couple months in Indiana, and that's I think really something for them. So talk a little bit more about Caitlin Clark herself. I know she just had a double-double in would that be the FIBA? I never have said it out loud.
Yeah. The USA senior team. Yep, for FIBA.
So how much of the team's identity, and she's still seemingly playing well, no significant injury concerns, how much of the team's identity do you think is tied specifically to Caitlin Clark right now? They made it a decent ways without her, but do you think she's necessary to reach that final step?
Are you talking about the Fever specifically?
Yes, for the Fever.
I absolutely. I mean, she has to be a part of the equation, right? She's a generational talent. She's proven herself time and time again in the league. Hopefully, this isn't something where she becomes an injury-prone player. I mean, obviously, that has yet to be seen. But I think their team has to build around her, certainly. You don't ever try to fit, in my opinion, a player into a system. You fit the system around your players. So, and Caitlin Clark is that driving force behind that. So obviously she only played one game with USA yesterday, being their first game, and she meshed very, very well. I mean, she stepped right back into it. She didn't have really any flaws. Finishing with that double-double, 17 points. She was, I think, 4 of 5 in 3-point attempts, which is her game, right? So one thing that she specifically touched on after the game was her capability of being able to set her teammates up. And that's her selflessness, right? So she has to be the pinnacle of what the Indiana Fever are trying to get to. I think you have to have her healthy, obviously. But she has to be that centerpiece for their success long term. So, hopefully they can lock her in long term once we get past all these negotiations. She's obviously, like I said, their generational talent with the WNBA. But I think a lot of their success is going to come from her ability to stay healthy and stay in the lineup. The chemistry between the players and anybody that they bring in is going to come over time. And I think that's something that's also reassuring, is seeing how well she's doing with the USA senior team. Their head coach touched on it last night. Her ability to mesh well with the depth that they have, because her competitiveness is hard to find, her skill level, obviously. But when you have a team like USA that has a lot of talented players, I mean, the league's best, and she jumps right in and she's meshing well with everybody. I mean, that speaks volumes, and hopefully that can carry over into the WNBA season. I anticipate it, obviously. I feel strongly that it will. But yeah, I think the Fever's longevity of success is certainly going to run through her. So,
And touching more on the CBA negotiations, how I know this is just speculation mostly. How serious do you think that is at the moment? Like how likely do you think it is that we have some kind of lockout or strike?
I don't think the strike is as likely now. The league obviously set that deadline of March 10th. Hey, if we don't come to an agreement by March 10th, the season is going to be impacted in some way or another. They obviously didn't meet that.
There's been a lot of past deadlines.
Yeah. I mean, we've been dealing with this for 6 months now.
Yeah.
But just what I have heard from other writers that are a lot more in the game than I am, they're there around these negotiations. It's very likely. I feel confident something's going to get done, either in the coming days, within the next week, is going to be my guess, just with the level of progress that they have made over the last 24 to 48 hours. Gosh, it was, what was March 10th? Tuesday? Yeah. They met for like 12 hours. I mean, they started at like 5 o'clock in the evening, and they were walking out of those meetings at 3 o'clock in the morning. You had league owners in there, obviously members of the Players Association that were a part of that. I think Brianna Stewart is a main driving force for that. I think her being in those meetings is very, very important. And I think that's where that progress is going to be made. So just with the progress and the discussions that they've made, the long discussions that they've had over the last day or so, they're definitely taking a step in the right direction. I expect, my thought process is I would expect a deal to be done in the next week.
Yeah.
So
I
we
would
can,
hope it is, because it
so
would just be a major depressant on just like how
yeah.
of a revolution women's sports is going through at the moment, for that to lose some momentum. And selfishly, I need some basketball in the summer. So
Right. We need something to write about. So that, I mean, this is, and when a deal finally does get done, this is going to spiral, and it's going to happen very quickly. I mean, we're already past the expansion draft point. This should have happened over a month ago. Free agency was supposed to start several weeks ago. So this is all going to happen. And then, of course, the upcoming draft that's supposed to be happening in April at the conclusion of the college season. So, I mean, this is all going to happen very, very fast. So, but hopefully it doesn't impact opening day, and we can start the first part of May, and we get a full season here. So
do the Fever have any draft picks in the upcoming draft? I can't
they,
imagine that even if they do, they'd be high.
they do, but they're not going to be very high
Yeah.
with the picks. So,
Yeah, I can imagine.
Dallas obviously is going to go number 1 overall. Who they take. I mean, there's a lot of discussions around that, but
Yeah.
they won't have any high draft picks right now where it stands. I suppose that could still
You
technically,
never know. Could be the next superstar.
Yeah. There's a lot of good players in college right now, so it's going to be really interesting to see, because it's going to be a really good draft class. So
Yeah. Some draft is one of my favorite times of the year. And then
yep.
we'll see with the Pacers lottery. That's going to really decide my move. But yeah. So what do you think, assuming that the season happens, this season means for the WNBA? We're a couple years into Caitlin Clark being in the league and a greater focus in like national sports on the league. What do you think this season means for the WNBA?
I think this season will mean really the longevity of the WNBA, right? So Caitlin's been in the league for 2 years. She's the reason for a lot of the attention. I'll say it. I don't know too many people that do or want to acknowledge that. There's still a lot of discussions around that. Where did all the attention come from? She's the driving force behind it. I mean, the numbers support that with viewership and, the media deals that are being done, merchandise and ticket sales, all of that. So this year is going to be very, very important. That's why they can't fumble it. They can't screw this up. I mean, this has gone on 5-6 months now with these negotiations. They can't afford a strike. All this momentum that they've had, it's taken them 2 years to get to this point with all this momentum to be at the height that it is right now. So they cannot afford to fumble the bag anymore. I mean, the season has to start on time. You can't afford to miss any games. You can't afford a lockout. There's too much momentum. There's too much hype around the sport, arguably the most that it has ever had. I don't know specifics behind numbers, salary caps and all of that. I mean, we could talk numbers all day around that, but it's just something that they have to get it right, and they have to do it now. So I think if the season goes on as scheduled and as planned, expect this to be one of the biggest WNBA seasons in a long time. Obviously, Caitlin's inaugural rookie season was very, very appealing to a lot of audiences. I mean, people that didn't even watch basketball have tuned in really ever since she came in. So, and then, like I mentioned, the draft class, the amount of players, the amount of talented players that are sitting in college right now, all this attention is going to continue to grow. So, I anticipate if things go as planned and the season goes on as scheduled, it's going to be a very monumental season for the WNBA.
Great answer. Now, one last thing I wanted to ask you, is there any like specific moments or anything about last year's Fever season that really stood out to you or has remained like memorable to you after all these months?
Definitely that playoff run was very inspirational. I remember watching it, and my writing colleagues at the time, we're talking to each other during this game, specifically the one when they knocked out Atlanta.
That was great. I did not think they were going to win that game.
And Lexi Hall got that steal. It was insane. Obviously, when Caitlin came back from injury, there was a lot of hype and attention on this, right? But just their playoff run, the first since 2016, I think it was. It was inspirational. Just you have all these new players, these young players. And then Kelsey Mitchell, her run, she carried that team. I mean, she's second to none. I mean, she's a generational player of her own. I mean, and the thing special about her in the season that she had last year, she's been through the ups and downs of the Fever. I mean, she was there since the time she got drafted. So she's been through it, and
that's what really made her. I don't really remember exactly what her injury was in Game 5, but that's what made that injury so heartbreaking. Is that she was so close to making it to the finals, even without Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I mean, in the way the Fever rallied around her after she went out of that game, I mean, it was incredible. So, to see her finally get that moment and make it that deep with that group of players, that was really special for me. I guess you can say as a fan to sit back and watch that. That playoff run was truly it was really cool. So hopefully we do it again this year. They have a lot of success and we get to see that. So
that's what we're all hoping for. I just want to say thanks again to my family for offering their perspectives on this season. And of course, thanks as well to Lindsay for offering her professional perspective on the Fever's upcoming season. Also a credit to Tack Tracks on Pixabay for our instrumental theme. And I just want to do one last really zoom out on Indiana basketball and what makes it so interesting right now. Because on one side, you have the Fever, a team forced into a sort of patience and rest, a team learning how to grow through adversity, through injury and uncertainty. And on the other side, you have the Fever, a team that's being pushed forward by star momentum, the arrival of Caitlin Clark, and really helping to redefine what women's basketball looks like in Indiana. These are two completely different timelines, two different kinds of pressure, but both are shaping what Indiana basketball looks like right now. Because whether it's a gap year or a chase for a championship, this identity stays the same. Indiana girls a state that loves basketball and invests in it, that plays it, and that grows its teams no matter where they are in the process. And now next week, we'll take this conversation even further as we look ahead, do a deep dive on the NBA draft lottery and what this could mean for the Pacers' future. And I just want to say thanks again for listening to the Hoosier Heartbeat, and we will see you next week.